Hey friends, it's Matt with Bowls, and today we are taking a look at the fast-paced arena combat game of Warhammer Underworlds. Warhammer Underworlds is a tactical skirmish combat game with a deck-building mechanic for 2 players. There are several different starter boxes available. They all use the same gameplay rules, but each come with different warbands and cards to play, which can add some additional mechanics and things like that. The objective of both players in Warhammer Underworlds is to be the one to earn the most glory by the end of the game. Glory is earned by eliminating your opponent's fighters and by completing objectives. One of the defining features of Warhammer Underworlds is getting to build your warband and your decks. Harrowdeep comes with Xandire's Truthseekers and the Kunnin Krew. Each fighter has a unique push-fit model and a fighter card which shows its stats and abilities. After choosing a warband, each player builds 2 decks of cards, an objective deck and a power deck. The objective deck must have at least 12 cards and is made up of objective cards. The objective cards will list a certain requirement to be met, and then the amount of glory earned for doing so. Being able to build your own objective deck means players can really lean into a specific strategy to achieve victory, which might not necessarily be to score the most kills. In addition to the objective deck, players will each build a power deck, which is made up of at least 20 cards and an even mix of upgrade cards and gambit cards. Upgrade cards provide a permanent bonus to your fighters, and gambit cards are a lot more open-ended in their use. They can be ploys or spells, but more often than not are single-use effects that do something and then are discarded. There is a huge selection of power cards, so this is really where players get the option to fine-tune their warband to play exactly how they want, and ideally synchronize with the objective deck that they built. All of these cards can be specific to a certain faction, or generally available to any warband. This adds a really interesting level of asymmetry to Warhammer Underworlds, which assures no 2 warbands will ever feel exactly the same. With both warbands set, we can get into the action. Warhammer Underworlds is played on 2 battlefield boards, which are set up before the game. Each battlefield board isn't just aesthetically different, they will have a mix of blocked hexes, cover, lethal hexes, and options on where fighters can start. Plus, players get to place feature tokens during setup, which are usually objectives but will also provide some cover. Each game of Warhammer Underworlds is made up of 3 rounds. Each round begins with players rolling initiative, and whichever player wins gets to take the first activation. Each player will have 4 activations per round, and they can use the activation tokens as a reminder, flipping them over as they take actions. When a player takes an activation, they can either have one of their fighters take an action, or they can take a player action. When a fighter is activated, they can take a single action. All fighters can take the move, charge, attack, and guard actions, but some fighters will also have unique actions that they can take. If a fighter takes the move action, they move up to their move characteristic. Then they gain a move token to indicate that they cannot move again this round. When a fighter takes the charge action, they get to move then attack, but they cannot be activated again this round. The guard action allows a defender to count this symbol as a success on their defense roll. Speaking of defense roll, let's get to the attack action and how combat works. Melee attacks, ranged attacks, and spell attacks all function basically the same. Each fighter will have their attacks listed on their fighter card. The first number indicates the attack's range, so a melee attack will have a range of 1, and the second number indicates how many attack die are rolled, and the icon next to it indicates which icons on the attack die will score as a hit. The attack die will either be a weapon attack die, or a spell attack die. Whatever fighter is being targeted by the attack rolls a number of defense die equal to their defense stat, which also shows which icon they are hoping to roll on their defense roll. From here, combat moves into something of a flowchart. First, fighters compare the number of crits rolled, which is this symbol here. If the attacker rolled more crits, then the attack is a critical hit. The attacker automatically deals the weapon's damage to the target, which is the 3rd number on the attack's stat. If the defender rolled more crits, the attack misses entirely and the action ends. If both combatants rolled the same number of crits, they both check their number of successful attacks or successful defenses based on which icons they're hoping to roll. If the attacker rolls more successes, they deal damage and maybe have the option to push their opponent backwards. Otherwise, the attack is a miss and nothing happens. When rolling in combat, another key feature is the idea of support. Fighters with allies adjacent to their target will have support. When a fighter has one ally supporting them, this symbol on the attack die will also count as a success, and if the fighter has 2 or more supporting fighters, then this symbol also counts as a success. Proper utilization of support is a great way to ensure you get the most out of each and every attack. Spells function fundamentally the same way as weapon attacks, but before the attack is performed, the caster makes a casting roll to see if they succeed on casting that spell. They roll magic dice equal to their wizard level, and if there are 2 or more crit symbols, the wizard suffers backlash and takes damage. If the wizard survives and has rolled enough correct symbols as noted by the spell, the casting succeeds. Otherwise, the spell fails and the action ends. As fighters take damage, they will eventually be taken out of action. For each enemy fighter you take out of action, you gain 1 glory. And you gain an additional glory if that fighter had a wounds characteristic of 6 or more. Once a player's activation ends, their power step begins. Here they can play their power cards, either gambits or upgrades, as we discussed previously. Both players alternate playing power cards until they both choose to pass. Then the round ends and the next round begins, except after the 3rd round, in which the game ends, and whichever player has the most glory wins. There are several other important mechanics to know to fully understand Warhammer Underworlds, things like reaction abilities and inspiring your fighters, but hopefully this was enough to give you a good idea of what to expect when getting into a game of Warhammer Underworlds. It's a quick, brutal game of fast-paced combat, so if all that sounds interesting, please go check out Warhammer Underworlds. If you'd like to see our coverage on the Warhammer Underworlds expansion Arena Mortis, which turns Underworld into a single fighter brawler, check out that up here. Or watch some of our other Warhammer videos in this playlist down here. Again, I'm Matt with Bowles. Thanks for watching. Bye.